I'm going to start pretty much now. I'll just introduce myself while people are coming in. We seem to have a pretty full house today, which is fantastic. It's nice to see so many faces. Actually, my eyesight's not so good, so I can only see up to about the 20th row. Anyone at the back, if you want to come forward, there's still loads of room at the front. So do come forward and have a seat. You'll benefit, I think you'll find it much more interesting if you can see the screen. Unfortunately, you get to see my face a bit more closely, so there's the downside. But other than that, should be quite a good show. Okay, so I'm going to get going. Come on in. People at the back, don't stand. There's loads of places to sit at the front. And I don't bite too much. So my name's Robin Nagy. I'm full-time at the Maths Association in New South Wales. I'm a professional learning consultant, so I spent 23 years as a teacher up until last year, but now I just teach teachers, which is kind of fun, except they're not quite as fun as students because they don't say much. I'm going to start off with a few kind of maths memes and things. This is hopefully not anyone in the audience, but maybe it's you. How I see math word problems, if you can't read this. If you have 4 pencils and I have 7 apples, how many pancakes will fit on the roof? Purple, because aliens don't wear hats. So hopefully that's no one in the audience, but if it is, well, maybe you need to do a little bit more work. This is quite a good one. Confused why I need to put my cake in the oven at 120 degrees. If you can't see this at the back, I can't see many people laughing at the back. There's still room at the front if you want to be able to see the screen. So be brave and move forward. Okay, at this point, let me just explain something. A lot of you are in year 12, and a lot of you are settling down to do some pretty hard study with mathematics, and a lot of you are constantly faced with this thing. Why on earth am I doing this? What on earth is the relevance of this to my real life? What's the point of doing all this stuff? Well, if I can just quote the famous English statesman George Savile, education is what remains when all that's been taught has been forgotten. Maths is not about what you're learning so much as how you're learning it. Most people will never use simultaneous equations in their life. They certainly won't use them to go shopping. You know, I know the cost of 3 lemons and 2 oranges, and I know the cost of 5 lemons and 7 oranges, so let's work out the cost of a lemon. You could just ask, yeah, or you could just put the lemons and the oranges in the basket and go and pay for them. No one really cares. You certainly wouldn't sit down with a paper and pen and work it out algebraically using simultaneous equations. The point about maths is not the usefulness. Yes, there are some professions, there are certain disciplines. Good on you boys for coming forward. There are certain things where maths is useful. But for the majority of us, maths is more like going to the gym. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So all the time you're studying hard and you're feeling a real brain burn, just remember it's not the actual thing that you're studying, it's the effects it's going to have long term on your brain. The other thing is, your year 12 is like a rite of passage. So when you go through year 12, you don't know whether you're going to be able to cope. It's a monumental year. When you've gone through that, part of the reason is that if you meet challenges in life, you know you've always gone through something maybe a bit harder, and therefore you can face those challenges. So that's what education is. Doesn't matter if you don't remember any of the maths, it will have, the educational side will say. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Here's a bit of a warm-up for you, okay? So I want you all to think of a number between 1 and 10. Don't tell anyone, just think of that number. Thank you for being quiet as well, because part of this lecture, part of this seminar is about focus and concentration. If you can focus for half an hour during my speech, you've achieved a 1/6 of what 2-unit students have to do in their 3-hour exam. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you practice focusing. So thank you all. Think of a number between 1 and 10. Okay, you've all got that number. Multiply it by 9. And if you're struggling with that, you know what? Choose an easier number. Okay. You should all have a number which is either 1 or 2 digits. If you've got a 2-digit number, could you add those digits together now? Should be able to do that without talking. Okay, could you subtract 5 from that 1-digit number? And now think of the letter of the alphabet corresponding with that number. So if A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, all the way through the alphabet, think of the letter, and now think of a country beginning with that letter. Got it. Okay, think of the second letter of that country. And now think of a large animal beginning with that letter. You got that visual? And think of the color of that large animal. And while you're doing that, has anyone seen my grey elephant from Denmark? Okay, awesome. Anyone get anything else? Brown echidna from Djibouti. What did you get? You had F. Okay, well, good go. You should have, it's all right. You should have all ended up with D, because maybe I didn't explain it clearly enough. That could well be the case. So with the 9 times table, this is a 9 times calculator. You know, 1 times 9 is 9, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times 9 is 27. And what you notice, 36, 45, and so on. You notice that there's always 9 fingers, so that when you add up the digits together, you always get 9. You should. Take away 5, you get 4. D, Denmark, or Djibouti, or Democratic Republic of the Congo, but most people think of Denmark, and then elephant, hopefully not echidna, because it's large, blah, blah, blah. Good. Off goes the elephant. Next thing I'm going to show you. So the purpose of maths, as I say, it's to develop your brain. So when you go to the gym, you develop your muscles. There's no point in going to the gym. No one actually enjoys, well, maybe you do. I don't. No one actually goes to the gym thinking, oh, it's useful in life to be able to bench press or to run on a treadmill. No, it isn't. What's useful is the effect it has on your body. So when you're bench pressing, when you're running on a treadmill, you are conditioning your muscles. With the boys, obviously, you're aiming at getting bigger muscles. Girls and some boys, you're aiming at improving your heart muscles and your fitness and so on. Because what the body does is it responds to that stimulus and it grows more muscle fiber. What the brain does, and neuro research shows this, is that the harder you actually work on something, the brain actually starts growing dendrites, which are connections between the neurons. Maths is superb for this, but only if you study it in the right way. So when you're studying maths, the purpose is you are going to the gym and you're doing mental fitness training. When you go to the gym, 2 things can happen if you bench press. I've got a personal trainer, okay, and he helps me get a few more reps out. But to the observer, what's happening is the bar's going up and down. One of 2 things could be happening. Either I could be pushing the bar, and thereby improving my, muscle tone, or the personal trainer could just be having a good workout on his biceps, and I could be doing nothing. To the observer, it's exactly the same thing. And Ernest Hemingway once said, never confuse motion with action. The point being that if you're in class and you're asking your teacher to help the whole time and you're understanding what the teacher's saying, you're not necessarily working your brain. The teacher's working his brain and you're just watching. When you're at home and you're doing maths work, and particularly studying for HSC, if you're just constantly turning to the back of the book looking at the answers, oh, how did they get there? What am I aiming at? You're not working your brain. You're just using your personal trainer to lift the bar the whole time, okay? So try and get that analogy of the brain gym. Okay, a few brain confusers before you get bored of my voice, which has probably already happened. Very good focus, by the way. I'm going to shine something up on the screen very shortly. People at the back, I hope you've got good eyesight. Please don't talk to anyone, but absolutely scrutinize what's written there as if your life depends on it. Then I'm going to ask you some questions. I'll put it up for a few seconds. Ready? Scrutinize. Don't talk. Don't talk. Great. So you should have all had time to scrutinize that. Hands up if you saw a triangle with the words Paris in the spring inside. Fantastic. Put your hands up if you saw something else. Wow, that's interesting. Let's have another look. Another 5. Don't tell him. There's no point telling him. Focus. 5 more seconds. Have a really good look. Scrutinize. Good. Hands up if you saw a triangle with the words Paris in the spring inside. Come on, be brave. Good. Well done. Hands up if you saw something else. Whoa. What is going on here? Okay, one more time. Have a really, really good look. Good. Hands. Good. Hands up. Let's be really, really honest and brave here. Who saw triangle with Paris and the spring inside? Well done. Good. Hands up if you saw something else. Awesome. And thank you, those people who put your hands up the first time, because I'm sure there were many more, but they just weren't sure. Good. You people who saw Paris in the spring, please read out with me as I point. Paris in the... Okay. Very good. Now, what's the point of all this? You came expecting HSC exam tips. Well, that is an HSC exam tip. What you're doing is your brain is trying to help you. Your brain is a very, very sophisticated organ, and it's trying to help you by filling in gaps. Does it all the time, trying to take shortcuts to help you. But it's not really helping. And those people who read Paris in the spring, you probably are very good at reading books. You're probably very good at English. You probably read much faster than the rest of us, and certainly me. I read very, very slowly. I'm very good at proofreading. I read every single word. In mathematics, you really need to read every single word, every single symbol. There are many professions where that's true as well. So, for example, if you're a lawyer, it's very important you read every single word in a clause, because not or comma changes the whole meaning of the clause. If you want to go into journalism, you need to just be able to read very quickly. Okay. Here's an example of where these kind of mistakes kick in. I'd like you to look at this, and I'm sorry for people right at the back because you probably can't see, but I'd like you to have a look and see if you can spot any mistakes in the working here. Okay, I'll give you about 30 seconds to have a good look through. And you can discuss this with your partners and friends. Awesome. So it seems that at least one person in the back row can read this. You've got better eyesight than than me. Actually, it might have been 2 people. Might have been 5 people. I don't know because I can't see. Hands up if you spotted at least one mistake in the working. Good, fantastic. Hands up if you spotted 2 mistakes. Any more than 2 mistakes? Okay. There are actually 3 mistakes here. So the very first mistake, I'll just say, I mean, obviously it's a large class, so I'm not going to ask you. But the first line of working, when you multiply both sides by 2, go on, shout it out. What's gone wrong? Well done. I actually can't hear you, but so the 5 wasn't multiplied by 2. So I multiplied the x minus 3 over 2 by 2, and I multiplied the 7 by 2, but I forgot to multiply the 5 by 2. But there's another mistake on that same line. It's a Paris in the spring mistake, because we had a minus sign, a negative sign, in front of the fraction, but I didn't multiply the minus by the minus 3. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with Paris in the spring. Paris in the spring, minus, minus. You're doing 2 steps in one, and therefore your brain makes a mistake because it just doesn't see that that should have been a plus. So that's the second mistake. And then the third mistake is obviously on the very last line. You take away 2 from the right-hand side, but taking away 2 from the left-hand side, you should be left with minus x, not plus x. So those are examples of how you need to really go slowly and deliberately, step by step. And yesterday I used the analogy of a tightrope walker. Okay, I don't know how to tightrope walk, but I'm pretty sure if I could learn how to go from that step to that step, and that step to that step, I could pretty much tightrope walk over the Niagara Falls, because basically it's just the same thing repeated again and again. But if you go along a tightrope walk and you try and take 2 steps at once, sorry, that was a bit too dramatic, wasn't it? You probably will just die. So with maths, you take 2 steps at once, you make 1 mistake, that's it, finish. Wrong. Wrong answer. So with maths, if you want to eliminate those silly mistakes which we all make, you've got to slow down, you've got to be more deliberate, take step by step by step, and if you ever have the question in your mind, do I need to take an extra step? The answer is yes. Be bothered to do that extra step. Good. Moving on. Okay, this next exercise is all about scrutinizing. See if you can get any better. I want you to count the number of F's in the following. And again, apologies at the back, but good on you if you've got good eyesight. Count the number of F's. You, okay. Can you see? Just move to here. Just come over. Okay, so how many F's did you spot? Put your hands up if you spotted one F. Oh, no one spotted an F. Put your hands up if you spotted at least an F. Oh, good on you. Keep your hands up if you spotted two F's, three F's, four F's. Oh, a lot of hands went down there. Five F's, six F's. Any more than six F's? Okay, awesome. So the people at the back obviously have double vision. So a lot of people spotted three F's, which were probably these F's. But did you spot these F's? The point is that the second lot of F's are all in the words of, and our brains just say of, and they associate that with a V, not an F. And again, the brain's trying to help you, but it's actually not helping in this situation. Okay, here's another exercise. You're going to absolutely love this. With your partner, with your friend, take it in turns. Have about 10 seconds to do this. I want you to repeat, sorry, that keeps happening. I want you to repeat the colors of the following words, not what's written, the colors. Do it as quickly as you can. Take it in turns, one person, then the next. Faster! Faster, faster. Okay, who's got brain burn? Whose brain's going, oh my goodness. Okay, awesome, thank you. Good. So, is there anyone who reckons they're an expert at this, really good at this? Come on, there must be at least one. You reckon you are. Are you brave? Okay, stand up. What's your name? What's your name? Morgan. Give Morgan a round of applause. Wow. Morgan, don't look round. There's only us. There's no one else here. Morgan, in as loud a voice as you can, shout the names of the colours. Are you ready?
Red, blue, orange, purple, orange, blue, green, red, purple, blue, red, green, orange, red, green, orange.
Give the man a round of applause. Have a seat. And good on Morgan for actually putting himself out there. I think it's really, really important, guys. You all put yourselves out there at all times and never be afraid of failure, because you know what? Failure is only something, it's a temporary state of affairs. But one technique you can use to try and stop your brain from helping is to actually just look at, for example, the last letter in each word, so that it doesn't form a word. You're just really focused on the letter and you're just looking at the color of the letter. And actually, you can work on this and you can improve with practice. It's called a growth mindset. Same thing with all your subjects, certainly true of maths. Here's another exercise for you. I want you to count the number of black dots on the screen. Are you ready? Are you ready? Be careful because they move around very quickly, and go. Count the number of black dots, quick. They're all moving around. Move your eyes around. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Where are they? How many are there? Okay, stop moving your eyes. Focus on one part of the screen. Do not move your eyes. All the black dots will disappear. There aren't any black dots. Awesome. So your brain is trying to help. How does this apply to mathematics? I've tried to explain how it applies. So here's an easy calculation for everyone in the audience. Are you ready for this? Okay, focus on this. So start with 1,000 and add 40 to it. Got it? Don't talk. Don't talk. Start with 1,000, add 40. Okay, add another 1,000. Add 30 and add another 1,000. Got it? Add 20. Don't say it out loud. Got it? Okay, add 1,000, then add 10. Right, what'd you get? Put your hands up, you got 5,000. Awesome, well done, you got it wrong. Okay, put your hands up, you got something else? Whoa. Okay, anyone get 4,100? Well done. Now, what seems to be a really easy calculation, the reason so many people get that wrong, and I got it wrong when I did it, obviously not today because I've done it a few times, when you get to the last stage, you should have got to 3,090. Then you add 1,000, 4,090 and add 10. And because you're doing 2 steps at once, and I told you about the tightrope walking, you end up with 5,000, but it's actually 4,100. Your brain just wants to make it a nice round number. Okay. Good-o. Let's now, so never do 2 steps at once. Okay, here is a little bit of a break from my voice. Here's a bit of a nightmare. Some people out already. If you want to avoid that situation, I'm going to actually just give you some tips for what you need to do between now and the HSC. So, first of all, try and organise yourself well in advance. Have yourself organised for your practice as well as the actual exam. Blue or black pens, ruler. Make sure you've got an approved calculator. The number of students who just use their iPhones for doing calculations, please don't, because you're not going to have those in the exam. Use a board-approved calculator, and ideally buy 2 of them, okay, so that you've got a spare in case anything goes wrong. Make sure you're using the same one as you're going to use in the exams. Use 2B pencils, because they're nice and dark and you can rub out the working if you're doing graphs and things like that. And I would advise you get one of these maths templates, because then you can draw circles with it and so on. Try and practice under exam conditions. That doesn't mean you necessarily need to time yourself. Anyone, just put your hands up if you play a musical instrument. Okay, a lot of people. So you'll know that if you want to practice playing something very fast, you need to practice very, very slowly, 100% correct, and then gradually it will speed up of its own course. You don't need to force speeding up. Same is true with maths. Practice slowly and deliberately, and try and do it perfect and 100% correct first time. In the long run, it's like tortoise and the hare. The tortoise will always win. Okay? The other thing is, please try not to look at the answers the whole time. Try and actually work through past papers like you're in an exam, you're practicing your focus, and then at the end of the exam, then do the marking, okay? So really try and give your brain a good burn, and also try and ramp up on the number of minutes and number of hours that you're able to focus in one go. Because it's a little bit like doing a half marathon. You don't just go out and run a half marathon. You need to actually improve the length of time that you can run for each session. And the same is true. You're trying to do a 2.5-hour exam if you're doing General 2, a 3-hour exam if you're doing 2 unit. That's a huge amount of time to be able to focus for. This lecture has only been going on 25 minutes, if that, and I've just been given my 10-minute warning. You've done amazingly well, but you're going to have to do this for more than 6 times the length of time. You need to practice doing that at home. The other thing is, always spend time laying out your work neatly. If you can't do that in practice, there is no way that's going to happen in the exam. By the exam, you should be on autopilot. You should have done enough past papers that you're just on autopilot. Okay, try and use 2 colours when you're doing your working. So even though the Board of Studies or NESA, they don't like you using colour in the exam because it doesn't scan or whatever, use it in practice. Get used to putting your pen down, picking up a different colour to write, for instance, what you're doing to both sides. Put your pen down, pick up the other pen. For the boys particularly, it will slow you down a little bit, give your brain a chance to just slow down so it doesn't go too fast and you don't make those silly mistakes. Okay, and then underline your answers, and that's true of the HSC. Underline the answers, because if the examiner sees the answer and it's correct, they'll just give you full marks. They won't bother checking the working. They should do, but if it's correct, they'll probably assume you've done the working right. If they're hunting around for the answer, they might see all kinds of things. Okay, familiarize yourself with the formula sheet or the reference sheet, and use it for every single past paper. Find out what's on it, find out what's not on it, and write down some extra formulas as you meet them, which are not on it, so that you need to know what you need to memorize for the exam. Try and build up that focus. I've already said that. Now, this is a bit of a sell. We're a non-for-profit non-profit organization, but we produce past papers and full work solutions, very often with more than one way of doing it. These are available at our stand, which is number 88. Yeah, two fat ladies, 88, bingo call, or 8 times 11, that's about it. So just along here, you can come and buy them. They're $30 for a set of 10 years worth of past papers in any of the levels, General 2, Mathematics 2 unit, Extension 1, Extension 2, or you can get them online at our web shop. Okay, so they're really worth doing, and inside, the solutions are written by maths teachers, so they're designed to help you understand, and there's also a reference grid with which questions are applicable for which topics in which years. If you work through 10 years worth of exam papers before your HSC, I guarantee you'll be well prepared. Okay, Maths General 2, there was a change in the syllabus in 2014, but an awful lot of the questions are still applicable, and in the Maths General booklet, it explains which ones are still applicable to the current syllabus. Get to know your calculator, okay? Find out what is available. Do you know how to use it? Do you need to use the statistics mode? Do you know how to use it? Do you know how to use the memory? The memory is incredibly useful to be able to store results in the memory. Try and find out how to use your calculator and make sure you use the same calculator for the exam. You'll get a booklet with your calculator, or you can download one. Okay? Spend some time getting to know your calculator and make sure your calculator's in the right mode, radians, degrees, and make sure you know how to change in and out. Good. In the exam, so just a little bit to go, then I'll shut up. Make sure you plan your time. And try and do this in the last few exams that you do in practice. Actually give yourself a time limit and work out how many questions are there, how long have you got, so how many minutes have you got per mark. And be ruthless about splitting up the exam paper, giving yourself a little bit of time at the end, just as a bit of a buffer. Underline answers, be bothered. Okay, that's 3 hours of your life. It's a long time, but in the great scheme of things, it's a tiny bit of time to show everything you've learned in 2 years. So be bothered to give the examiner everything on a silver platter. 5 minutes, good. You'll get that in the exam as well. So be bothered to write an extra step if you're in doubt. Okay, never do 2 steps at once. Please do not use your brain to do calculations. Why would you use your brain? You've got a calculator. By all means, use your brain to just double check, but use the calculator to actually do calculations, or check with a calculator. Always answer the multiple choice questions. I personally would leave those to the end, because you can always guess them, and you'll get about a quarter of them right, especially if you answer B or C, okay, but do it for all of them. But never leave multiple choice blank. Leave it till the end, or if you're going to do it at the beginning, maybe the general they will do it at the beginning because they've got many more, but be absolutely ruthless with your timing. Okay, be very strict. Okay, start each question on a new page. In the general, you'll have a booklet anyway. In 2 unit, I would advise you to only write on one side of the page, even if they say you must use 2 sides. What's going to happen if you don't? Yeah, use one side. If you get to halfway, and you need to turn over the page, copy the last line onto the next page so you don't make a transcription error. Copy the last line onto the next page. See what I did there? Okay. Write big and clearly. Nice and big, nice and clearly, and diagrams particularly. Don't leave 2 answers. If you've done it twice, cross out the one you don't want the examiner to mark, but don't use whiteout, just put a line through it, just in case it was right. Find ways to check your answers, whether plugging them back in the previous calculation, you know, the algebraic one, you could have used that answer, put it back into the original and see whether it works, and that's a double check. Make sure you draw your graphs nice and big, 1/3 of the page or bigger, 2B pencil, label the axes X and Y, put a scale. Generally for graphs, there's like 3 marks. You won't get 3 marks if you just scribble it. You've got to give the examiners everything they want on a silver platter. Errors usually occur at the end of a question or the very last question. So make sure your brain doesn't move on to the next question already before you finish writing the last stage. And this is a really important point. Reread. Get used to this in practice. Reread the question at the end of the question. Make sure you've answered the question. It's not just for maths, it's true of all subjects. Okay, There are lots of further resources. There's the NASA website with a lot of hints for exams and stuff. There's past papers. There's also on the MANSW website this thing here, which is the guy who used to do these speeches. He's got advice. Oh, that's very nice. So he's got advice specifically for General 2 and for 2 unit, and it's about a 30-minute video. So please go to that if you want some more advice specific to, sorry, there it is, specific to your level. That's on the MANSW website. Finally, doing HSC lectures as usual at UTS, and that's for all levels of maths. There's 2 days of HSC lectures, structured revision for whatever level you're doing. We've got flyers which have been handed out. There's more at the front. There's also flyers for the HSC solution booklets, or come and visit us at stand number 88. Eddie Wu's doing the 2 unit, so if you're doing 2 unit, that will sell out very quickly because he's a superstar. I'm doing the extension 1, day 1. No one's heard of me, so that won't sell out. You'll be sweet. Okay. Finally, never give up. It's only HSC. In the great scheme of things, it's not life and death. Good luck, and my name is Mr. Nagy. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.